Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, friends and colleagues from across the globe, wherever you are today. We hope that you are safe and healthy, and your families and your colleagues are also doing well today. Today is the 6th episode of the one and only Arbitration Kitchen, where we meet online with our colleagues from across the globe, with the directors of the leading arbitration centers and other colleagues. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Ismail Selim, the director of the Cairo Regional Center for International Commercial Arbitration, and his beautiful daughter, Alia. Hello, good afternoon, good evening. And we will cook a...
Good afternoon.
Yes, and we'll cook a very special dish today, very close to the hearts of the Mediterranean nations and Arabic nations. This is the grape leaves. This is a wonderful dish which we also love in Russia. It looks like this. It's delicious. It's fresh and very light. It's called the grape leaves. So Ismail and Alia, how are we gonna cook tonight? Who is cooking? Who is talking? How is splitting the roles?
Well, I'm not a very good cook, so Alia, my daughter.
I'm gonna cook. He's gonna do the talking.
Yes.
Alia, the cook. Okay. So you'll do it. Yes. Alia, is it the first time you're cooking this, or this is something you would cook normally?
No.
Okay.
Not normally, but I did. Like, yeah, I just cooked it today.
Okay, good.
Can you hear us well?
I can hear you well, but with a slight delay. So I'll make sure that I speak, and then I'll give you to respond. So it might be the connection on my end. I don't know. Okay, let me introduce the ingredients for our viewers, and you probably see it on the screen. It's rice. How much rice do we need, Alia?
Roman, can you hear us well?
Can you hear us?
Sometimes, yes. There is the connection is not stable for some reason, but I hope we can overcome that. So we are now on the list of ingredients, and can you introduce what we need for this dish?
Okay, so we're gonna need, of course, the vine leaves, like the grape leaves, okay? And then we're gonna need parsley, and oregano and tomato paste, onions, lemons, a tomato, and some butter and garlic, 3 or 4 cloves.
Yeah.
And also we're gonna need the chicken broth. It's like the soup that comes from the chicken when you boil it. It's what's left from it.
Okay, so like chicken stock. Okay, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, so you probably cook chicken in advance. Or do you think people can use all those bouillon cubes, you know, Maggi or whatever, things you just dissolve in the boiling water? Would that also work for this dish instead of boiling an entire, like a chicken?
It's better if you put the chicken, but I think you can try it.
Okay, yes. And we also have the second slide. It's it has the sauce. What is, we also cook a sauce, I understand, with the dish? So
it's what the rice absorbs when it's cooking, because when we first do the stuffing, you don't actually cook the rice completely, so that it can fit inside the leaves. And of course, we're gonna cook the leaves before it too.
Okay, shall we then start cooking and talking, and let's see how it progresses then? Yes,
okay.
Of course.
I'm hungry.
Can I start? So I'm lucky to have I'm lucky to have Alia with me because if it was me alone, I can confess that I'm a very, very bad cook. I can barely do my breakfast, but and even that, so she's saying that I can't. I'm happy to have my daughter with me. She is 13 years old, but I can see a lot of talents in her, including cooking.
This is wonderful. I understand that you have a big family, but I don't know whether it's big by Egyptian standards, but certainly a big family by Russian standards. You have 3 kids. Is that so?
Yes. Yes, so I'm married and I have 3 children. So Alia is my second daughter. I have Malak. Here is Alia. So Alia is 13 years old. You can see her on this photo. And then there is another photo with me. I'm riding a bicycle.
Yes.
With Alia and Selim. Selim is my youngest son. He is 10 years old. And you see that I'm practicing a lot of sports during this semi-confinement period.
With me?
Yes, with Alia, and with I exercise every day in the gymnasium with Alia. Every day evening, I do some 20 or 30 minutes of cardio exercises on the treadmill with Alia. And I have lost 10 kilograms during the last, I would say, 3 months, but now I'm stable. I want to lose a couple of kilograms, but now I stopped. I'm trying to lose more weight, but I can't. I have to eat even less, but those friends from the international arbitration community who used to see me in conferences, they would notice a change that I have lost around 10 kilograms, so I feel much better now. I'm still eating, but much more healthy food, and Alia from time to time is cooking for us. The COVID-19 period is somehow, it has its advantages also.
Right. It's quite an investment to lose weight. You know, you have to change your wardrobe quite a lot.
Of course.
New suits and new clothes. Yes, but this is a substantial achievement, I must say. Losing, you said 10 kilos over a period of 3 months. This is very substantial. I wish I could be a person of your discipline and do the same. Quite to the contrary, I think I gained a lot of weight during this COVID confinement. Right.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right, and I assume the weather is gorgeous, so you can
yes, at this
exercise
time
outside.
of the year, the weather is ideal. The weather is ideal during the day. The temperature is something like 25 degrees, and it falls to 15 degrees during the evening. So it's very suitable for walking, for doing some sports. And in Egypt, we just have a curfew, so we are not allowed to go out after 9 p.m. But since I live in a compound, so I can still go out inside the compound even after 9 p.m. But of course, we do respect social distancing.
Right, of course, of course. Let's get back for a second to the cooking. So what are we doing now? For the viewers, yes?
Now we're boiling the vine leaves so they can cook. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So at first it's like this color, it's like light green. We're gonna make it cook until it's a bit more darker, and then that's when you know it actually cooks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So these are fresh leaves.
Yes.
Very fresh. Probably from your garden. You don't have to walk away to fetch them.
No, they aren't, but yes, what would you like to say more, Alia?
Yes.
That? So Alia, now you're boiling them, aren't you?
Yes. And then I'm gonna start doing the stuffing while I'm boiling them.
And what did you do with the onion before we start?
Oh no, I just cut it because I don't want to cry in front of the show.
She didn't want to cry in front of the show, so that's why she started with the onions before the show,
Yes.
to avoid crying and being in tears.
You know, after the end of season 1, I guess we'll all of us will become a bit of a cook. You know, we learn different tricks, and one of the tricks doing with the onions is if you put a knife under a cold running water, it'll help you to keep your tears away. So, so
Yeah,
to say.
I do that, but like my eyes are very sensitive, so I just cut them very fast. So I like try not to tear.
Right. Yeah. Well, when we cook with kids and we chop onions, they use swimming goggles to protect themselves. And it's always it's always funny because you know, surprisingly the goggles do not help, because when you inhale, it's absolutely the same result. But that was a good try, I must say. So we are now boiling leaves. We are boiling rice. Or what else are we doing,
No.
Alia?
So now I'm just I added some oil to the pan.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna add the onions first. And
I will turn on the ventilator if you don't mind.
yes, please.
Because it's getting hot.
I'm chopping a tomato.
Okay.
Okay. So you're chopping them, like you're dicing them. How big the?
Yeah, slicing them
This is
into like small cubes.
Okay. Right. Okay. And then these are tomatoes, as far as I can tell. Okay.
Yes. Can you see them?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Very good.
Good. So, Ismail, we spoke about your kids, but there was a time when you were a child yourself, right? Was it?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
And did I tell you about before talking about myself? I also have my eldest daughter is Malak, and Malak is 17 years old. I think you saw her. You might have seen her in a photo, because I don't want to forget Malak also. And then
Yes.
we can. Yes, here is Malak.
Yes.
Malak is 17 years old, and she is at her last year of school. She is doing le bac français, so she is following the French system, but she also take the Arabic language as a foreign language in addition to French and English and Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So she speaks 4 languages, and this is her last year. But she's not, she cooks, but she's a good cook also, but she's not as passionate like Alia. So that's why I chose Alia with us. Alia is 13.
Right.
You know what, I started to cook very often because of the quarantine. So I read and cook when I'm bored, and it turns out to be good. So like, why not?
Very good.
Okay.
And you also study, I assume, like multilingual. You have French and English. Of course, you have a wonderful English and
yes.
French and Arabic. What's your family language, by the way?
Well, at home we speak the Egyptian dialect. So the Egyptian dialect is a bit different from the classic Arabic. So we speak both. We can speak both. But we write the Arabic classic language. We don't really speak it except in formal speeches or in the media. But usually when we speak the Egyptian dialect that we don't write because it's not a written language. So if to do the analogy, it's like speaking Italian and writing Latin. So it's the same if I do the analogy. So we speak the Egyptian dialect and we write the classic Arabic. But also in the family, we are francophone, and so we speak French and English. And my eldest daughter can speak Spanish also, but I don't.
This is amazing. This is something I wish I could I could do when I was
And,
young, just take the languages, yes.
And because of my childhood, because you asked me a few minutes ago about my childhood, so I lived in China from 1984 to 1988. So you can see here, yes, the photo. Here I'm in Beijing last year in November 2019 in the China Arbitration Week. But you can see on the screen myself as a child. I was 9 years old, and I was at the I was in Beijing at the Great Wall of China. So you can see my photo at the Great Wall in 1984. So as a child, of course, I was exposed to Mandarin Chinese, so I can still remember some Mandarin due to my childhood in China for 4 years. My late father was the ambassador of Egypt in China.
I see. So, I think that was a very warm welcome at the conference when you demonstrated this photo by the Chinese colleagues.
Yes, we call it Chang Chang in Chinese. This is the Great Wall.
This is the Great Wall, indeed. Yes, and we see some familiar faces among the participants, among the
yes, of course,
the panelists. So that was
the lovely Anna Joubin-Brett and other eminent, prominent arbitration practitioners.
That's right. Right. Tell us about this photo. Where are you on this picture?
Yes, here it's in Luxor. It's the temple of Hatshepsut, which was the first Egyptian queen as a pharaoh. So everyone knows Cleopatra, but Hatshepsut came to power much earlier than Cleopatra. Hatshepsut ruled Egypt 3,500 years ago. So this is the temple of Hatshepsut in Luxor. So it's a 3,500 year old temple. So I was there with my family, and it's marvelous. And of course, I encourage you to visit.
Thank you. Yes, we should. I've never been to Egypt to much regret, which I should do it as soon as possible.
So you are the most welcome after the lift when the ban on flights is lifted. Of course, you would be the most welcome.
Yes. By the way, how are you coping? Is it very restricted in Egypt, or like, for example, the Cairo Regional Arbitration Center? How do you operate in these conditions? What's going on?
No, in Egypt, the pandemic, the numbers are rising, but it is not as critical as in some countries in Europe. So we have registered a certain number, of course, of cases of COVID-19. Now we are at 9,000 cases, but 3,000 are already cured. Unfortunately, 500 people passed away, but these numbers are still limited compared to other countries that you know very well. So we don't have a full curfew, we have a curfew at night. So we open the center twice a week, pardon, because we are an institution and a hearing center at the same time. So we open every Sunday and Wednesday. We work on Sunday and Wednesday, and during the other days of the week, we work remotely.
Okay. So,
but of course, we take all the precautions, the masks, the social distancing, etc.
Certainly. Does it make you more online centric? I mean, have you introduced any online features to the procedures or to the internal administrative procedures within the center?
We already use the video conferencing facilities. We already used our video conferencing facilities. The live feed proceedings, but now we are encouraging parties for hearings. The maximum number of counsel who can attend, it's 2 counsel, 2 lawyers from each side, plus the 3 arbitrators. So this forces parties to also use video conferencing for hearings.
Right. So 2 counsel per party. It's a wonderful introduction to the cost efficiency in arbitration.
Exactly.
So you don't have you don't have 15 or 20 counsel representing one party in the room. Yes.
It depends of the size of the case, of course. For small
Yes.
cases, two counsel can be sufficient number, but for bigger cases, they have to use video conferencing because we try to avoid having a very big number of persons in the same room. So we allowed two lawyers from each side.
Okay.
And for the rest, we can use the video conferencing facility.
Okay. If I may, back to Alia. Alia, what are you doing now? Chopping.
I'm chopping the parsley, and I added the tomato to the stuffing, and I added 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, and I'm gonna let it sit till the tomato paste cooks.
Okay. How long it will take?
Like 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right.
Until I finish chopping this.
Good. You're doing all right. Do you need any help out there? Maybe Ismail?
No.
No, that's fine. All right. So a couple of more photos of you, Ismail. We've seen this. Oh, this is Moscow, isn't it?
Yes.
When was it? And what brought you to Russia?
It was in 2016, and I was invited by the Russian Chamber of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs to speak in a conference. At that time, I was a partner and head of dispute resolution at Al-Tamimi & Company at the Cairo office. So I was invited to speak in a conference, and I spoke about dispute resolution in the Middle East. So of course, it was an opportunity to visit this marvelous city, which is Moscow, and to visit the Red Square. So it was a very nice experience. It was the sole time where in which I have visited your beautiful country and to witness your beautiful and ancient civilization.
Oh, thank you very much, and you're most welcome. Likewise, and we'll be happy to see you in Moscow once the restrictions are a little bit relaxed. Okay, we've seen this, the cake, and tell us about this cake. What's this cake about?
Here we were in Abuja in Nigeria, and it was the LCIA Users Council Symposium. It took place in Abuja in 2017. And the cake represented the era, so the Equal Representation Pledge. The Equal Representation Pledge was launched in London, to the best of my knowledge, in 2016. And the aim of this pledge is to promote gender diversity in international arbitration. So to promote the appointment of able female arbitrators in international arbitration and in arbitration in general. And here on the photo, you can see Nadia Darwaze, and she is the head of arbitration. She's a partner at Pate & Co, Paris. She is from Germany, and she has Jordanian origins. You have Jacqueline, Jackie, of course, the Secretary General of the LCIA, a marvelous woman also. And you have Doyen, so Doyen Rhodes, Vivier. She is a very able Nigerian lawyer specializing in arbitration. And she is the one who is promoting the ERA, one of the major promoters of the ERA, the Equal Representation Pledge. She is a member of its International Steering Committee, and she is promoting the pledge in Africa. And then you can find my dear friend Fidel Masengo, who is the Secretary General of the Kigali International Arbitration Center, which is a success story in the field of institutional arbitration, because as you know, Rwanda has faced a lot of challenges when the very sad events and the genocide that took place in the 90s. But now we see Rwanda a real success story in general, attracting foreign investors, maintaining peace, and they have a successful arbitration center that has registered in 5 or 6 years more than 100 cases. So he's also on the photo.
Yes, This is one of the Rwandese are very talented people, so I'm sure they will recover very fast. And I hope the economy will be doing better and better, even despite the present situation. But speaking about the equality pledge, how well you are doing, your institute is doing with respect to the equality. I have the next slide. I'll display it to you, so perhaps you can comment on that. And this is the slide taken from your official website about the division between female and male appointed to the tribunals by the institute, I understand, and also the division between ages. You see the arbitrators below 40, under 40, and arbitrators over 40. And of course, the over 40 arbitrators dominate, same as male arbitrators. And this is 2018. How has it changed over a year, say in 2019?
We are more or less maintaining the same figures. I know that the figures are still modest. You see that there are much more male arbitrators compared to female arbitrators. I would say partially because in our part of the world, the ladies are, the female lawyers tend to more specialized in corporate, to become corporate lawyers and M&A's lawyers, banking lawyers, much more than dispute resolution lawyers. But this is now, this trend is changing. And most of the females that are in these statistics, you would notice that most of them are below 45 years old. So there is a generation, there is a rising generation of female arbitrators from the Middle East and elsewhere, of course, because in CRCICA proceedings, you find arbitrators from all over the world. Not only, of course, the majority are from Egypt, but from all over the world, you find arbitrators appointed in CRCICA proceedings. So these figures represent all the arbitrators appointed, not only by the institution, but most of the arbitrators are appointed by the parties. But the institution tries, taking into consideration the circumstances of each case and the interest of the users, to promote diversity. So to appoint female arbitrators whenever this is possible, to appoint, in small cases, arbitrators who are under 40 years old. So you have at the other side arbitrators who are under 40, who can be appointed by the institution in the very small cases, to give them the experience. And this is how the major Egyptian, there are very big names in the field of international arbitration who are Egyptian. I don't want to cite names and forget other names, but you know them very well. We all took this opportunity by the CRCICA to be appointed before the age of 40, when we were under 40. My first appointment was in 2006. Of course, I was not the director at that time. A director cannot sit as arbitrator in the same institution. But at that time, I was only 31 years old, and I was appointed by the CRCICA in a domestic case, in a case where the respondent did not participate in the proceedings. So I was appointed by the institution. It gave me a first experience. So we are trying to do the same with the young, able generation, to give them this first opportunity. When you get this first opportunity as an arbitrator, you start having a track record, and you can be appointed in the future by the parties.
Absolutely agree with that. But before we move on with our professional side of the story, I just wanted to check with Alia. So what's going on?
Okay, so now this color, like you see, it got darker.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm gonna leave them. I'm gonna leave them cool for a while because they're very hot, and I added some water so they can cool a little faster. And now I'm just cleaning the rice so that I can add it to the mixture of the stuffing. Yeah, that's it.
Do you think it's possible to see what's in the pots? What do you have there? Just if you could zoom in, or just bring your camera over the.
I'm just gonna bring my
over the saucepan and yes, we can see you.
So here is the leaves.
Yes.
And then there's the mixture.
Okay, so what's there? Tomatoes, diced tomatoes.
Tomato paste and parsley.
Yeah.
And tomato, onions, and oregano. And now I'm gonna add the rice, and then I'm gonna add dry mint.
Okay. So that yes, and they will be the filling for the leaves, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When are you planning to start with the sauce, or is it already?
No, not now. Like the sauce, it barely takes like 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. So just for the viewers, we have the filling, which is diced tomatoes, onions, parsley, spices. I understood. What else? So
can you repeat the comment?
all sorts of vegetables. Carrots? No, carrots go for the sauce. The pepper, salt, oregano, minced parsley, minced onion, salt and pepper, and 1 minced tomato. So you put it on the slow fire and cooking. All right. And is it is there any oil, like olive oil or anything involved in that? Okay.
Before you put the onions, you have to put oil so it doesn't stick to the pan.
Right. Okay. Now I see. So I think our viewers are on the same page now. Okay. And now I can get back to the statistics, Ismail. Give me a second. I'll bring it back to the screen. We've just. Do you see it now?
Yes, I can see.
Yes. So we spoke about the diversity, and
it's also I will use my phone better. Yes.
Okay.
So diversity, of course, you see there were only 11 male ladies, but the institution has appointed some female arbitrators, but we cannot change the trend alone. But I think it will change year by year. The females are proving themselves. Now, I think this is the next slide. You're talking about the nationality of non-Egyptian arbitrators.
Yes, yes, and this is an impressive geography of the arbitrators you have. And these are non-Egyptian. I assume that you know the Egyptian part is. If you set it aside, we just look at this diversity. So you have basically arbitrators from all over the world, both Middle East and Europe and North America. Does it resemble the types of cases you have, nationalities in the cases?
And even from Sudan also, because Sudan is part of sub-Sahara Africa.
Yes.
So you have 3 arbitrators from Sudan because some cases come from Sudan. So you have contracts performed in Sudan and the CRCICA is the chosen institution. This happens for occasion from time to time. Every year you get something like 1 or 2 cases from Sudan.
This is interesting. And I see the North American arbitrators, namely Canadians and US arbitrators. Is it due to the gas field development, or so? What kind of cases were they involved in? I mean,
well,
you have to go very precise. Yes.
This is usually the choice of the parties. Under the CRCICA rules, the parties are free to choose the arbitrators they wish. So there is no closed list. There is no limited list. The parties are free to choose whoever they want to appoint as an arbitrator. But when the CRCICA appoints the presiding arbitrator or an arbitrator on behalf of the respondent, if the respondent doesn't appoint its arbitrator, we have to appoint from the list of arbitrators of the CRCICA. Also, there is a rule, it's Article 8.4 of the CRCICA rules. When the 2 parties are from 2 different nationalities, it is advisable that the presiding arbitrator, when appointed by the center, is from a neutral nationality. So that's why you find, usually you can find presiding arbitrators from different nationalities.
Right. And yourself, you also sit as arbitrator. Is it permitted for you to act as arbitrator under the CRCICA rules? Or
I used to sit as arbitrator under the CRCICA rules when I was a lawyer. But when I became the director since 2017, I am prohibited to sit as arbitrator under the CRCICA rules because I'm the director of the CRCICA. There is a conflict of interest. I am allowed to sit as arbitrator under the rules of other institutions, as well as in ad hoc proceedings.
okay, and this is what you also do. I mean, this is a part of your job now.
Yes, yes, of course. I have sat in many ICC proceedings, LDIFC, LCIA, the Abu Dhabi Center for Commercial Arbitration, and the CAS. Also, I am registered at the Court of Arbitration for Sports. So that's what these are the main institutions under which I have served as arbitrator.
Okay, and are those specific type of matters, or you can generally take on any commercial and or sports arbitration case?
Yes, the majority of these cases were construction cases, but I have also served as arbitrator in other areas of disputes, not only in construction.
Okay. Speaking of construction disputes, another interesting slide, another interesting piece of statistical data from your website. This is the statistics of 2018, and I'm sure you will be updating the 2019 quite soon. But what's interesting is about 25% of the disputes administered by the Institute come from the construction industry, and also there are some disputes, the lease agreements, hotel management, etc., real estate development. Yeah. So the construction industry is quite important for Egypt and the area, I understand.
Yes, there are a lot of construction fields now in Egypt. I can tell you that the biggest site in Africa now is the new administrative capital that is going to be built. It's 50 kilometers far from the east of Cairo. So we are building a new capital. It's going to be a huge project, and it's going to be big enough for 6 million people to live in.
So it will be a booming industry, even more than that, more than now. So
yes, and you can find there are a lot of parallel cities, not only to Cairo, but to all the cities. There are many fields of construction in Egypt. The state is building extensions to all the cities, and this is because of the demography. Egypt is, unfortunately, the Egyptian population is increasing by 2 million people every year. So there are a lot of construction sites. Also, new factories are built. And Egypt in 2019 witnessed 5.6% of economic growth.
This is very serious. And what's the population yes. of Egypt as we stand now?
100 million.
100 million. It's a
yes.
substantial internal market.
20 million in Cairo. So that's why the state is building a new capital.
Okay. Yes. Well, how is the cooking doing? Can we get back to our dish? I'm getting hungry, to be honest. I don't know about you.
Yes. How is cooking doing, Alia?
Okay, so the stuffing is done.
Can you show?
Yes. 1 second.
So Alia is going to show us the stuffing, which is
okay.
Okay.
Yes. Oh.
The stuffing.
So what's in the pot? What's in the? It's rice, isn't it?
Yes, it's rice and the rest of the stuff. And now we're gonna start wrapping them.
Yes. Okay. So you mixed boiled rice together with the vegetables.
No, it's not boiled rice. still uncooked.
It's uncooked rice. Okay, so it's
Yes.
clean rice. All right. So you just clean
Yes.
rice and rinsed it in running water and then add it to the
Yes.
vegetables. Okay. Is it a special type of rice?
No, it's just
what do you
white
use?
rice.
It's white rice.
It's white rice. Okay. And now I'm gonna take a teaspoon of my fillings.
I think we'll. Yes, I think we'll ask some assistance from Ismail to just keep the camera closer to this, so we can see the magic of grape leaves.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Aha. So you put it on the.
I'm gonna press it. Okay. You take the two, you fold them in, and then you roll very tightly.
Yes.
And there you go.
Ah, beautiful. Can you show us one more, maybe a couple of more? So, because I'm sure people are practicing it together with you now, and you are the only authority now how to properly roll the leaves.
Okay. Oh, and if you have
Okay.
this takes take your time while doing this, because you don't want the rice to like pop from the thing.
Yes.
Allow me to bring some water. Okay.
Can you remind us what you've done to the grape leaves? Did you put them in the boiling water or?
Yes, boiling water, and they go from they go from this color to this color.
Okay, right.
So you see the difference, huh?
Yes,
color.
yes. And they are tender enough to change the color immediately. So, and I imagine they are. Oh.
Yes, they change. They boil fast.
Very fast. Yes. Okay. Well, this dish must have like 3,000-4,000 year history, because it looks very simple, very practical. We have all the ingredients available.
It is. I personally thought it was more complicated than that, but it's not.
This is wonderful. It looks beautiful. You don't put much.
You see, it's really. Proud of.
Yeah, everyone just walked in.
Yes. Okay.
It's very easy. It's kind of like when you wrap spring rolls, they wrap it the same way.
Yes.
Almost. Okay, are you going to put this on back or something?
Yes.
Or
okay.
You want a few more wraps?
Let's do a couple of more. Let's do a couple of more. And this is a tradition. This is a traditional stuffing with rice and vegetables, and I imagine you can also use like a more meaty ingredients there as well for those who like meats. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
you can add minced meat.
Yes.
But I've never really tried it. I prefer it without meat. But with meat, it's also, you can do it. It's the same. It's the same. You just have to cook the meat and mince it, of course.
Yes. Yes. Maybe even fish. No.
No, not fish.
Perhaps in other countries, we never know. I'm sure there can be some differences from a country to another.
Yes.
I'm not a seafood type of person.
This is
and she doesn't like to eat fish.
This is a very big leaf, huh? Isn't it? It's twice as big as normal.
If it's big, you just add a little more stuffing.
Yes. Well, that would be my role if I were there. Oh, I'm hungry, guys. Okay, well, a couple of more slides, Ismail, if I can get back to.
Of course. One moment. Yes. I will open this from my cellular phone. Yes.
If I may ask, how much time do we have?
Nearly a half an hour, maybe. Yeah, 15, 30 minutes.
Very good.
I think if we can wrap it up in 30 minutes, will be quite watchable. You know, people these days are not ready to watch long movies. They want things short and fast and concise. So we stick to the format of 1 hour and 15 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes max. So far, we've been 45 minutes into this episode of the Arbitration Kitchen, Season 1, Episode 6. So we have maybe another 30 minutes to continue and then enjoy the food. But my next question to you is the nationalities of the parties which are the CRCICA Center administrators. And
Yes.
I imagine that Egyptian parties dominate then. You probably also have domestic disputes. But now looking at the at this pie, statistical pie for 2018, I see that there's quite a diverse pie of nationalities here, including some even Chinese parties. Tell us about that.
Yes, so these are the purely non-Egyptian parties. So companies incorporated outside the host state, which is Egypt. So you have the Americans, the American companies coming on top. And then you have the Saudi Arabian companies. You have 4 Saudi Arabian parties, 9 US parties, and then you have from Lebanon, from Russia, from Italy, and then you have from Belgium, China, Germany, Kuwait, the Netherlands, Sudan, and UK. So you see it's very diverse. In 2019, the Chinese and the UK parties came on top. So this is on top of the non-Egyptian parties, of course.
Why is that so? What
Yes,
changed?
so the Chinese, yes, you know, the Chinese are investing everywhere, and they are contractors. They are working as contractors also everywhere across the globe. So it is not surprising to see that we have more and more Chinese parties, and they are now trusting the neutrality of the CRCICA, of the CRCICA Regional Center. But we did not count here. These statistics are very conservative, because we did not count the Egyptian joint stock companies and the Egyptian limited liability companies, which are owned or ultimately controlled by non-Egyptian shareholders. They are not counted here in these statistics. So if you add these companies, you will find more and more international cases.
Right. Yes. Is it the institute? We spoke about the institute. It's not a non-governmental institute, I understand, and it's under the auspices of an international organization. Is that correct?
Exactly. The CRCICA, the Cairo Regional Center for International Commercial Arbitration. So CRCICA, it is not an Egyptian center. It is an international non-governmental organization based in Egypt. So it was established in 1979 by virtue of an international agreement between Egypt and ALCO. Is the Asian African Legal Consultative Organization. It comprises 47 member states. 46 states are either Asian or African states, and the 47th state is Cyprus. So Cyprus is the only European country which is a member of ALCO. ALCO was established in 1957 to advise the its Afro-Asian members in the fields of international law. And then in the 1970s, the ALCO member states wished to create and establish international arbitration centers within the Afro-Asian region. and 2 centers were established respectively in 78 and 79. So the first center was in Kuala Lumpur, the KLRCA, which is now the Asian International Arbitration Center. And 3 months later, the Cairo Regional Center for International Commercial Arbitration was established in Egypt. And then 3 other ALCO centers were established, respectively in Lagos, in Nigeria, in Tehran, in Iran, and in Nairobi, NCIA in Nairobi. It was established in 2013, also as an ALCO center. So the CRCICA enjoys the diplomatic immunities. It enjoys all the immunity and privileges, ensuring its independent functioning from the host state. And it is also independent since the director of the CRCICA is not appointed by the Egyptian government, but it is appointed by a board of trustees, which is comprised of notable and prominent arbitration practitioners and international law practitioners, and 75% of the board of trustees, the members of the board of trustees, they are not Egyptians. Same is the advisory committee. The advisory committee also is comprised of eminent Egyptian and international arbitration practitioners, and they play a role similar to the ICC court and the NCIA court. They decide on case management issues, and they decide upon the challenges against arbitrators.
Okay, so it's an independent center. I've read that there are state-owned arbitration institutes or state-supported arbitration institutes in Egypt. Is that correct?
Yes, they are. So the Egyptian legislator has opted to provide for Egyptian centers, and they are called Egyptian centers. So you have the Egyptian Center of Arbitration, which is under the auspices of the GAFI. The GAFI is the General Authority for Investment. So it provides in the investment law of 2017 provides for the establishment of the Egyptian Arbitration Center. And it is, so the management of this center is appointed, go back again, is appointed by the Council of Ministers. And you also have another law that has established in 2019 under the auspices of another regulator, which is the Egyptian Financial Supervisory Authority. It's an arbitration center for non-banking financial disputes. It is also a state arbitration center. You have a third center also called the Egyptian Arbitration Center for Sports, and it is under the auspices of the Olympic Committee of Egypt.
Okay, how successful are they? Any cases so far?
The first 2, they did not administer cases yet, but the Egyptian Sports Arbitration Center has administered cases. But there are doubts about its constitutionality, and the Egyptian Court of Cassation recently has rendered a decision whereby there is a referral to the Supreme Constitutional Court to decide upon the constitutionality of some of the provisions of the Egyptian sports law, because it needs to be independent from the Egyptian Olympic Committee. Okay. There was also a center that was established by the Ministry of Housing, but it has also, so it was also a governmental center, but it has failed. And the Egyptian Minister of Housing has issued a decree to close this center.
So they were financed by the state?
Yes.
Okay, so they were not sufficient self-supporting organizations. They required extra finance by the state. But with respect to the sports arbitration. Sorry about that. The sports arbitration, isn't that the government repeating the same mistake which CAS in Lausanne had some years ago when it was accused of not being impartial because it was under the auspices of the International Olympic Committee, and then they decided to move to introduce something in the middle, some organization which would probably guarantee the impartiality.
Exactly. This is what the Court of Cassation has ruled, and it has, as an obiter dictum, has mentioned the experience of the CAS in Lausanne and how the ICAS was established to create some sort of independence between the CAS and the ICAS. This is what is going to happen when the sports law is going to be amended, certainly.
That's interesting. Another news entry which I came across recently was one of the sham institutes in Egypt in the Chevron case. If you want to comment on that, I don't know how how political it is, but we are very interested in sham institutes and how they are dealt with in different jurisdictions. So what's going on in Egypt in that respect?
Well, unfortunately, in Egypt there are some sham arbitration centers which are private bodies. They are not really institutions. And that's why the Egyptian Court of Cassation has considered that these centers are not considered as arbitration institutions under the Egyptian arbitration law, because there is no legal security, there is no experience of case management and administration of cases. So that's a requirement by virtue of a very recent decision of the Egyptian Court of Cassation. And there is no legislation regulating the establishment of arbitration centers in Egypt. So, of course, the Chevron case it's very well known in the public domain. It was considered as a criminal offense, what has happened under this center, which is located in Heliopolis in Egypt. So these are information in the public domain. And all the arbitrators who were involved in rendering this sham award and the management of the institution, they were all convicted by the misdemeanor court of Egypt. They were convicted to 3 years of imprisonment. So this was a hit, of course. This was the intervention of the state to stop these criminal offenses perpetrated under the name of international arbitration, unfortunately.
Well, this is important. Yes, this is important that the state deals with those sorts of issues. Okay, well, a couple of more slides just to keep up the interest of our viewers. So, do you see it? This is a rectangular representing. Do you see it, Ismail? Yes.
Yes,
representing the languages of the arbitral proceedings in the institute. And it's interesting. We know that arbitration, international arbitration specifically, becomes more like English language centric, and the majority of cases are done in the English language. And we see this is a very interesting diversity in Egypt, that 70% of cases are actually done in Arabic. It's very interesting.
Yes. And so, I can tell you, it does not reflect a 70% domestic cases and 30% international cases. It's not the case, because from among the cases which are in the Arabic language, you have some of them, of course, or many of them are domestic cases. And there are also regional cases. So between, for instance, the Kuwaiti party against the Sudanese party, or Egyptian party against Saudi parties. So parties from different Arabic countries. Also, there are European countries, but constituted in the form of Egyptian joint stock companies. They entered into contract with state entities or with Egyptian entities, and during the negotiations, they agreed on Egyptian law and that the language of arbitration is the Arabic language. Sometimes there is a lack of agreement on the language of arbitration, and in this case, the arbitral tribunal would choose or would determine the language of the proceedings in accordance with the CRCICA rules. So we always advise the parties when they negotiate their contracts not to rely on the language of the contract, but to explicitly choose the language of the arbitration, so that the tribunal doesn't have to decide upon this issue.
Okay. Can we get back to Alia for a second? So what's going on there in the kitchen?
So now I'm just gonna do, I stopped a little bit with the wrapping, and I'm gonna start doing I have to fill the bottom of like the pot we're gonna put it in with like onion circles and carrots, and then I'm gonna add also down like the broken leaves, the ones that cannot be stuffed, because you're probably gonna find many of these, and I'm just gonna add them down so like I can put the stuffed ones on top, and then I'm gonna start doing the sauce.
Okay. All right. And the sauce, tomatoes, I assume. What else? The tomato pasta?
No, the sauce is just, it's like more like what the rice is gonna absorb. It's gonna be the chicken stock, and also I'm gonna add like 2 tablespoons or 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and I'm gonna add 2 lemons, and yeah, that's it. That's
okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And you said it will take nearly 5 minutes to cook the sauce, so it's very fast. Yes. Okay.
You don't need heat to make the sauce, because it's already gonna like heat while you're cooking the rest of the dish.
Okay, that's the good news. Back to you, Ismail. So Egypt is the ancestral model law-based country, isn't it? Or
yes.
What's the law? What's the arbitration law like?
Since 1994.
Yeah.
So before 1994, the law was influenced by the old anti-arbitration French law.
Anti-arbitration French law. So what was that supposed to mean?
Before 1980 and 1981, because the French law was reformed in 1980 and 1981. Before that, the modern French pro-arbitration environment was relying on the jurisprudence, on the French Court of Cassation decisions, La Régocée, etc. So Egypt was very hostile vis-à-vis arbitration. The arbitrators had to be mentioned by their names in the arbitration agreement, otherwise the arbitration agreement was null and void. The CRCICA led a committee to modernize the Egyptian legislation, starting from the 90s. So the late director, Dr. Mohammed Abu Ainain, and prominent Egyptian scholars and judges and university scholars, like Dr. Al-Qushairi, the late Dr. Al-Qushairi, and others. I don't want to mention names and forget names. So, but there was a committee, and they they presented to the Egyptian parliament a law, an act for international arbitration. And imagine at that time, the Egyptian parliament was against this draft law. Not all of them, but especially the opposition. They said that this law will permit foreign arbitrators to decide upon cases involving Egyptian parties. And this is a return to the mixed courts, because in Egypt, since 1875, we had 2 judicial systems. We had the national courts composed exclusively of Egyptian judges to decide upon disputes between Egyptian nationals, and mixed courts which was comprised of a mixture between Egyptian judges and European judges. So the mixed courts used to decide upon cases involving foreign and Egyptian parties. So it was considered as encroaching on the sovereignty of Egypt, until the mixed courts were banned in 1949, and all now the courts since 1949 are composed of Egyptian judges. So the members of the parliament were doing the analogy between the mixed courts, where Europeans were sitting as judges in Egypt, and international arbitration. So at that time, the president of the parliament was very intelligent. He said, okay, you are unhappy with this draft law, so we will not call it the international arbitration law, we will call it the law of arbitration for civil and commercial matters. The arbitration law on civil and commercial matters, and it's going to govern domestic arbitration and international arbitration. It's going to be based on the model law.
Okay.
So,
and yeah, so you're a model law country now since yes, 94. Okay. And if you speak about Africa in general, can you tell whether it's well received in Africa as well, or you know, African states have some other types of arbitration laws of their own?
Yes, so of course Africa is very big. It's a very big
yes.
continent, very diverse. But I can say that most of the African countries adhered to the New York Convention, save for very few states. I will cite some. For example, Ethiopia, Chad, Libya, Namibia. These countries did not yet adhere. Congo, Brazzaville, le Congo, Brazzaville did not yet adhere to the New York Convention. Less countries have enacted model law based arbitration acts, but I will mention the countries which have enacted model law based legislation. Of course, like Egypt, Tunisia, Nigeria. Nigeria is a giant in arbitration. You have South Africa, you have Mauritius. Mauritius has done also very interesting reforms. You have the OHADA zone, which is the West Africa Economic Zone. They have enacted the Act Uniforme, and they have modernized the Act Uniforme of arbitration in 2018. This, it is not a model, it is a model law-based legislation, but a very modern set of arbitration legislation. You have some countries which are influenced by the modern French arbitration law, like Algeria, like Morocco, and other Francophone countries. So you can say that Africa is a rising continent in the field of arbitration. You can see that Africans want to sit as arbitrator in arbitrations involving contracts performed in Africa. And this is what we try to encourage at CRCICA, to encourage also geographic diversity. So for the first time, I can give you an example. For the first time in 2017, a Nigerian arbitrator has been appointed in a CRCICA case. Of course, there is a challenge for CRCICA to appoint arbitrators from Sub-Sahara, because we have 70% of our caseload in Arabic. But we have appointed arbitrators from Sudan in cases coming from Sudan, so it was easy for us to do so. And there is also always the interest of the user that we take into consideration when we appoint arbitrators. But I can tell you that if you want to speak about the African Arbitration Association, which has been established in Kigali in 2018, and I am honored to be part of its board of directors. our goal is to promote African institutions and also African arbitrators, to permit African arbitrators to be more visible, and that able African arbitrators are appointed in international arbitrations, at least those involving African states.
This is very important, and it resembles what we are trying to do in Russia. And yes, and neighboring states as well, to promote younger arbitrators, to promote diversity, and also Russian-speaking arbitrators globally, because we analyzed the case law of the the statistics of the ICC, for instance, some years ago, and we realized that despite a growing number of Russia-related cases under the ICC rules, we had only a few Russian arbitrators appointed by the institute, or even by the parties themselves. So there was not much trust in the professional capabilities of local arbitrators. Speaking about your institute and speaking about Africa, speaking about African arbitration, I was pleased to see your the institute among the GAR whitelist institutes in Africa. How did you make it there? What helped you to become listed as one of the top institutes in Africa by the Global Arbitration Review?
We are on the GAR's whitelist of arbitral institutions, and this is the only the only institution based in Africa that is on the whitelist of the GAR. This is since November 2016. And here you can see on the slide in 2019 that we won the GAR award for the regional arbitral institution that impressed. So these are two things. So why are we on the white list of the GAR? We are on the white list because we are the oldest institution in the continent and in the MENA region. We are 41 years old. We have administered more than 1,400 cases throughout our history, many of which comprise international elements. We have encountered the most difficult situations at least once. This is what the GAR literally says in its guide, that we have this experience of encountering the difficult situations as an institution, and we were able to deal with it according to international standards. We are also well managed. This is what the GAR says. The CRCICA is well managed. This is why we are on the
right. Well, at least at my end, the connection is a bit lagging. Yes, you are back. I personally, I haven't heard what you've said in the past 30 seconds, starting with the white list. Yes, you said that you went through some tough times and you proved impartiality, independence of the institute, and hence the GAR.
In 2013, yes, the center has made great strides during a very difficult time of that the region has gone through. So yes, the CRCICA was able to break its records in 2012, has modernized its rules in 2011 by adopting the 2010 UNCITRAL rules, but with some minor adaptations due to the fact that we are an institution and an appointed authority. And then in 2019, we won the GAR award for the second time because of our reasonable cost compared to our services. This is what the GAR said. And also the diversity not only in the appointment of arbitrators, but also within the institution itself. We promoted 3 able ladies, one of them became the deputy director, and the 2 others, one became an associate director, and the 3rd became a counsel. So we had 6 promotions, 3 male and 3 females. And also our advisory committee appointed very prominent members in our advisory committee, arbitration practitioners. So our advisory committee now is more diverse, more international, and younger compared to before.
So it's a serious progress has been done under your leadership, which is I'm very pleased to know. You told me when we spoke about this idea of Arbitration Kitchen, you also told me this wonderful thing which I've never came across actually, about the application of New York Convention. Like you said, some of the African states are not members. You've mentioned that they are not members to the New York Convention. And you also mentioned that there could be some benefit of having a seat of arbitration in Egypt because of the enforcement issue. Can you a little bit explain this this thing? I think that will be very interesting for our viewers, please.
Okay, it concerns the Arab states which are not party to the New York Convention. You have still Iraq, Yemen, and Libya, who are not yet did not yet adhere to the New York Convention. They are not a party to the New York Convention, but they are parties to the Riyadh Convention. The Riyadh Convention is a convention between Arab states, and it comprises, among its provision, some provisions for the enforcement of arbitral awards. So if you have a case, if you are negotiating a contract with an Iraqi or a Yemen or a Libyan party, and you choose a country as a seat which is not an Arab country, you will not be able to enforce the award through the Riyadh Convention nor the New York Convention. Because if you choose a European seat, for example, London is a party to the New York Convention, but is not a party to the Riyadh Convention. So it is more beneficial, for the sake of enforcement, that you choose a friendly seat of arbitration in an Arab country. And there are, not only Cairo, there are other friendly seats of arbitration in other Arab countries. I would say, for example, by way of example, Lebanon, Tunisia, Dubai, there are other, I'm just mentioning by way of example, but there are other friendly, Morocco. So there are other friendly seats of arbitration in an Arab country that you can choose in order to be able to enforce the arbitral award in accordance with the Riyadh Convention.
Yes, this is very important to understand, because it never crossed my mind, to be honest. But yes, so how are we doing with the sauce? I see a big scoop and some saucy.
I just put a cup and a half, like a cup and a half, 2 cups of the chicken broth with a tablespoon of tomato paste and 3 lemons.
Yes. So just squeezed lemon in the bowl. Yeah, I assume.
Yeah. 1 second. And I already placed the leaves. Yeah, and I'm gonna add the sauce to the leaves now.
Oh, like that. Okay.
And now I'm gonna make it start boiling.
See, that's how you cook rice. Okay. That's how you cook rice. And how long it'll take?
Exactly. How long it will take, Alia?
Which one?
The boiling of...
The boiling probably... It's okay, it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. The boiling will take probably...
1 hour?
No.
1 hour.
2 hours?
The boiling only, it will take 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Or
10 minutes.
Okay.
5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, good.
Like
Right.
when it starts boiling.
Okay, so we are boiling the grape leaves, stuffed
I
grape
stand
leaves
corrected.
in the sauce, and it will take 5 to 10 minutes. If we can get back to you, Ismail, I have a couple of more photos of you going around the world promoting African and Egyptian arbitration. On this picture, I understand, I found it on the internet. I understand that you are in France, is the Court of Cassation. So
Yes,
you promote the French version of your rules.
exactly. We have enacted our French version of the CRCICA rules. We have issued, the French version of the CRCICA rules in 2017, on the 31st of March 2017. So I have been trying to promote the use of the French language in arbitration for the Francophone countries, because I have made my PhD in France. So I have a certain passion for the French language and the Francophone culture. And it's useful for the North African and the West African countries to have another option to resort to arbitration under the CRCICA rules in the French language. So here I am at the French Court of Cassation with Dominique Hacher and Miss Castellan. And I delivered a lecture on Beatrice Castellan, and I delivered a lecture on the CRCICA at the French Court of Cassation.
Okay. And the next photo is a memorandum with Kigali Center, as I understand, you just mentioned before. So you do a lot of African arbitration promotion. Tell us a little bit about the African Arbitration Association and its objectives. I imagine they are quite universal, but maybe something interesting you want to tell us about that.
In the African Arbitration Association, we are trying to promote the African arbitrators and the African institutions at the same time. So the CRCICA has, of course, is supporting the AFAA, and we organize a conference every year. So there was the first conference, the inaugural conference in Abidjan, at Côte d'Ivoire. This was in 2018, and then there was a second conference in Kigali in 2019, and we were going to organize another conference in Ghana in 2020, but of course the conference has been adjourned due to the COVID-19 crisis. We have a lot of members now. We have more than 300 members. There are European members, of course, and American and non-African members. So you are welcome to become a member of the African Arbitration Association if you want to promote the idea of promoting arbitration in Africa in general. So we try to promote African Council, African arbitrators, African institutions, and we have entered into several cooperation agreements with not only the Kigali, we have entered into an agreement with the NCIA, the Nairobi Center, with the also the Lagos Court of Arbitration in Lagos. This was only in 2019.
Yes, it's of course a very noble mission to create something new to promote, because Africa is very rich in people, and you know, of course, economic-wise, the continent is
and it's a fast-growing
continent. Yes.
Yes, and you can see if you look at the news 20 years ago about Africa, you see civil wars, lack of stability, and problems. But now, when you open the news and you see Africa, you see a lot of economic growth, you see a lot of stability. So Africa is really progressing and developing very, very quickly.
Okay.
Yes.
And like on top of the leaves, just add like slices of lemons, and put 3 garlic cloves, not minced, just like place them, and also add 3 teaspoons of butter, and also put it on top. Yeah.
Have you done it already?
Yes.
Can you show us what's in the pot?
Okay, so I will take your phone and show us.
No, I'll just.
Yeah. Is it a gas stove or electric gas?
There are the slices of, and the butter is melting. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay, and it's a gas stove. So you guys use gas in Egypt, yes? Or electric stoves?
Yes.
Yeah, gas is nice.
Yeah, there's both. I don't know.
Yeah, it's for some reason food tastes different when you cook it on real fire. Yeah, so and of course gas is much better than the electrical stoves. Okay, a couple of more things about the center, and
yes,
I was surprised to learn that you guys actually have your own state-of-the-art facilities, hearing facilities there, and they look very spacious to me. So tell us about that. Is it like a part of the business of the Arbitration Institute, or it's run by another company? So what's this? Or this is yours, or this is not yours? What is this?
No, it is CRCICA. So CRCICA
Yes.
is an institution, and it is at the same time it is a hearing center. So we have state-of-the-art hearing facilities. We have 3 major hearing rooms, and they are very well equipped in terms of video conferencing and the live feed of proceedings. So any witness can testify remotely, and we even support hearings taking place abroad. So sometimes you have parties. So there are the CRCICA cases, so the hearings of the CRCICA cases, and we also other institutions do use our hearing facilities for their cases.
Okay.
I will give you several examples. We are the sole alternating hearing center of the CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Africa. So there are cases of sports arbitration registered in Lausanne at the CAS, but all the parties are Egyptian. So the hearing takes place in Egypt in the CRCICA, at the CRCICA premises, and the CAS can follow the hearing remotely through video conferencing. Sometimes you have witnesses who cannot travel to the Schengen zone. For example, witnesses from Syria, from Libya, from Iraq, from Yemen, from some countries which are unfortunately not very stable, and it's difficult for them to get the Schengen visa or to get the UK visa. So they come to us, they are cross-examined remotely by the arbitrators sitting in Europe, or sometimes in Cayman Islands. We have supported the Cayman Islands Supreme Court, and they were cross-examining remotely a witness here, and the live we were using the live feed of proceedings, so the witness can be visualized with a reasonable part of the hearing room, and when you can have the live testimony, and it is written on the screen. So when the court reporter is writing, it's immediately visualized on the screen. So we have all these technologies that can be used during the hearings.
Okay, well, this is especially important.
The electronic bundles and the support to the witnesses.
Yes, this is especially important during in today's circumstance where we are having some travel restrictions. And by saying that, I would like also to bring the attention of our viewers, of our colleagues, to this slide. The Russian Arbitration Association, the ArbitRAAtion Kitchen, are well aware of the constraints and the problems which are surrounding doctors across the world, and for that we would like to bring attention to this fund, the Solidarity Response Fund under the World Health Organization, where everyone can contribute a penny to assist the doctors around the globe to fight the problem, to fight the disease. So the information about this fund is visible on the slide, and it will be also available on the video which we are planning to upload on YouTube. If you can, and you can find it on the Russian Arbitration Association YouTube channel. It's accessible to everyone. We are a bit running a little bit out of time, and if we could enjoy one last time, you know, the dish and how it looks. Now, before we close our program today, Alia, what's there to show? Yes.
So now after the water that boils, you have to put it on like very low heat for 1-2 hours. It's gonna you're gonna see the stuffing, it's gonna grow, and like the rice is gonna be cooked and it's gonna be soft so you can eat it. But I made before we start some, and then you take it like that and flip it over.
Okay.
Show us. Wow.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Well done.
Yeah, we want to see it closer, of course.
Yes.
1 second.
Yeah. Okay. So then you boil it, you cook it on a very small fire for another hour or 2 hours, just to make the rice.
So this is the outcome after 1 hour. So of course, it takes more than an hour and a half to cook it. So this is the end result. This is the end result, and Alia is going to show it to us. We need a closer look. Huh?
1 second, I'm just going to remove something.
Okay, what do you want to? Okay.
Oh, this is beautiful.
And I'm just going to put it on the sides.
Yes.
Ismail, I'll appreciate if you can take the phone and we can see this magic in action. It looks beautiful from far away, but it's probably even more. Oh, yes. Yes, okay. So there's a slices of lemon, all leaves, and of course, oh yeah. And then you use it as a finger food. You take it, dip it in some sauce, and have it for dinner.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Show us, Alia.
I'll take one. Oh wait.
Yes.
There's the leaf stuffing from down here.
Okay.
And give me one because I'm also very hungry.
Okay.
And the stuffing should look like this.
Yes. Okay. So you see this really tender rice and
because you know we have the fasting of Ramadan now, so
yes.
No, halal.
Okay. Yes. So
yes.
give me please I know.
Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, now we can flip the camera. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Alia and Ismail, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful Monday.
Thank you very much, Rome.
The food.
Thank you very much to all the Russian Arbitration Association and our Russian friends who are watching us.
Everyone. Yes, I think we have more than people from Russia will have. That's the reason we are doing it in English. But people will view it from different parts of the world. And thank you very much for sharing the news from Egypt, good news from Egypt. We wish you all the best. We hope to be useful as an organization, as your friends. And everyone, please keep safe.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful. Thank you for your wonderful idea and initiative. I also have Malak with me, my eldest daughter. You want to go from Malak?
Stop eating.
So Malak, my eldest daughter.
Hello, Malak.
Hi.
Hello. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Selim family, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Until then,
thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.